His wife said, "If you don't like me going to the club with my ex, maybe we should take a break." And he granted it in grand style. "If you don't like me going to the club with my ex, maybe we should take a break." Those were the last words Savannah Bennett said to her husband before walking out of the house with the confidence of someone who thought she had everything under control. She had no idea that the man who once built his world around her was already planning a farewell so precise it would turn her request into a life sentence of regret. Viewers, what would you do if your spouse said those exact words to you? Drop your thoughts in the comments. Rain pressed softly against the tall windows of the Bennett townhouse, a rhythmic whisper across the glass that somehow made the silence inside feel louder. Dallas was half asleep beyond those panes, streetlights bleeding gold across wet pavement, a siren somewhere far off. Inside, the air was measured, controlled, almost surgical in its stillness. Noah Bennett sat at the long dining table, a pool of laptop light washing over contract drafts and delivery schedules. Columns of numbers reflected faintly in his eyes, proof that some things in life could still be made to align perfectly, even when people could not. A mug of coffee had gone cold beside him, untouched for hours. Upstairs, the soft click of heels began descending the staircase. Each step sounded like a countdown. Savannah appeared at the landing, dressed for noise and attention, a fitted black dress that shimmered when she moved, perfume laced with defiance. The kind of beauty that knew its power and didn't apologize for it. He looked up briefly. She paused halfway down, watching him the way someone might glance at a stranger who'd overstayed in their home. No words at first, just the quiet clash of two people who no longer recognized what they had built. "I'll be out for a while," she said finally, fastening her earrings in the mirror by the console. Her tone was even, rehearsed. He didn't respond right away. The tapping of rain filled the gap. When he finally spoke, his voice carried none of the warmth that used to soften their mornings. "Where?" Her reflection didn't flinch. "The blue room with Tyler's." The syllables dropped like pebbles into deep water. Tyler Brooks, her ex, a man who wore charm like a weapon and owned half the nightlife in Dallas. Noah's fingers paused on the keyboard. The man she said was a closed chapter of her life. "Tyler," he repeated, barely audible. The word tasted metallic. Savannah met his gaze across the table. "It's just a social event. A few friends. You don't have to make it a thing." He leaned back. "You think that's appropriate for a married woman?" She crossed her arms. "I think what's inappropriate is being controlled. I've been home all week. I need some air." He studied her, the confidence, the dismissiveness, the small spark of rebellion that had been growing for months. The silence stretched between them. And then she said it, lightly, carelessly, like tossing gasoline near a quiet flame. "If you don't like it, maybe we should take a break." The words slipped out too easily, a bluff tossed across the table like a test she assumed he'd fail. He didn't move, didn't blink. A thin smile touched his lips, not out of anger but realization, the final confirmation of what he already knew. Break granted. For the first time that night, she lost her balance, not physically but emotionally. Her eyes widened, unsure whether to laugh or demand he take it back. He didn't. He simply rose, closed the laptop, and walked past her toward the kitchen, footsteps unhurried. The rain thickened again outside, sheets of silver against glass. She stood there for a while, pretending to check her phone, pretending his calm didn't unnerve her. When she finally left, the sound of the door closing echoed like a verdict. At 10 o'clock, Noah dialed a number he hadn't used in months. A man's voice came through, steady, professional. "Hello, sir. Trent, follow my wife tonight. I need everything documented." "Understood." The call ended. Noah poured a measure of bourbon, let it roll once around the glass before taking a slow sip. The taste was bitter, earthy, something final in it. He sat by the window watching headlights smear through the rain, and waited without expression. Hours bled into dawn. At 5 a.m., his phone vibrated once on the table. A single message. Package ready. He opened the folder Trent had sent. Photographs, video stills, timestamps. Savannah laughing at the bar, a hand resting lightly on Tyler's arm, later leaning against him as they left the club together. No reaction, no curse, no shout, not even the tightening of a jaw. Only a long exhale, steady and deliberate, as though he were releasing the last ounce of feeling left inside. He closed the laptop, picked up his phone again, and made another call. "Claire," he said when his attorney answered, voice rough from sleep. "I need to see you in the morning. Something's changed." 8:30? She asked, instantly awake. 8:30, he confirmed. When the call ended, he stayed by the window until the night drained into gray. The city was stirring, unaware that inside one quiet townhouse, a marriage had just expired without a sound. Noah didn't pace. He didn't replay the images. He only sat still, watching the slow light of dawn crawl across the floorboards, realizing that indifference, true indifference, was colder than betrayal itself. The rain had stopped by dawn, leaving the sky washed in a dull gray that stretched over Dallas like unspoken truth. A faint chill crept into the house, the kind that seeps through walls after a night of heavy storms. Savannah returned home around 9, sunglasses still on, perfume faded to a faint echo of smoke and whiskey. She walked in like nothing had happened. Her heels clicked against the marble floor as she crossed the silent living room. "Noah?" she called softly, testing the air. Only silence replied. The kitchen was spotless, the table cleared, his laptop gone. She frowned, scanning the space as if expecting a note or a trace of anger. Nothing. In the bedroom, his side of the bed was made with military precision, the sheets cool to the touch. She opened the closet. His suits hung neatly, undisturbed. The faintest scent of cedar cologne lingered, that familiar reminder of his quiet steadiness. Savannah exhaled, relieved. "He's just at work." She peeled off her dress and stood before the mirror. Her reflection stared back with tired defiance, mascara slightly smudged. She convinced herself nothing had changed. But somewhere across town, Noah Bennett was already sitting in Claire Donovan's office, posture composed, expression unreadable. The city buzzed outside the window, all morning light and motion, but in that room the air felt dense with intent. Claire adjusted her glasses, flipping through the folder he'd placed before her. Photographs, timestamps, investigator notes. "You have every angle documented," she murmured, eyes scanning the evidence. "You were certain this would happen." Noah didn't answer. Claire leaned back in her chair, tapping her pen against the table. "You know, most men come in here screaming. You're quiet." "Noise doesn't fix things," he said finally. His tone was calm, but carried weight, as though the words had been distilled through 1,000 sleepless nights. "The prenup still stands," she continued, opening a legal pad. "Everything you owned before marriage remains yours. The house, the company, your accounts. Untouchable. If you want to move forward, I'll prepare the separation documentation quietly. She won't see it coming." He nodded once. "Do it, and file for divorce. I want everything ready before I move." Claire studied him for a moment. "You're not acting out of anger, are you?" Noah met her gaze. "Anger's temporary. This is clarity." He left the office soon after, his steps slow but deliberate, like a man walking through the ashes of something sacred. Outside, traffic hummed along the avenue. Horns, chatter, movement. The world continued its rhythm, oblivious to the quiet undoing of a marriage. By the time Savannah texted him, "Want me to bring breakfast?" he was already back at the company headquarters, finalizing logistics with his finance team. He saw the message pop up on his phone, read it once, then locked the screen without replying. That afternoon, Savannah called twice, left a playful voice note, and moved on with her day. The silence didn't alarm her yet. She had always assumed Noah's patience was bottomless. He was the kind of man who fixed things instead of reacting. She didn't realize this time. He wasn't fixing anything. He was dismantling everything, piece by piece, quietly. That night, Noah came home late. No confrontation, no questions. He walked in, set his briefcase down, removed his tie, and went straight to the guest room. She heard the door close and sat there on the bed, confused, waiting for an argument that never came. For the next few days, that silence became its own presence. No shouting, no accusations, just the eerie rhythm of normalcy. He made coffee in the mornings, answered work calls, left the house. But the small gestures, morning kisses, shared glances, those easy laughs, had disappeared. When she tried to start casual conversation, his replies were short, deliberate, neutral. Long day. Need to rest. We'll talk later. He never raised his voice, but his distance was louder than rage. At night, she could hear him typing in the other room. What she didn't know was that every keystroke was another layer of preparation. Document revisions, property transfers, emails to his attorney confirming next steps. Savannah told herself it was a phase. Men get moody, work gets heavy, things pass. She believed her charm could fix what pride had broken. But every morning he left a little earlier, and every night he stayed up a little longer. By Thursday, she caught her reflection in the mirror again. Same woman, same smile, but something behind her eyes had changed. A flicker of unease she couldn't name. Noah's silence wasn't confusion. It was resolve. In the guest room across the hall, his phone buzzed once. A message from Claire. All legal documents ready. Awaiting your instruction. Noah's thumb hovered over the reply. His face, calm as ever, betrayed nothing. Then he typed one word. Stand by. The rain began again outside, soft and steady, the sound of inevitability returning to Dallas. Saturday arrived wrapped in golden light that didn't belong to the story unfolding inside the Bennett house. Savannah left early, wrapped in a white robe and laughter over speakerphone as she confirmed her spa appointment with 2 friends. Her perfume lingered behind her, a faint trail of sweet arrogance that clung to the walls like the echo of an argument that never happened. Noah watched her drive away from the upstairs window, expression unreadable. He had learned to conserve emotion the way a diver conserves air, carefully, deliberately, only for what mattered. For 7 days he had lived inside his own silence, rearranging his thoughts and his assets until both were in perfect order. The house felt too clean, too symmetrical. Her side of the vanity still scattered with half-used lipsticks, perfume bottles, and the earrings she never wore twice. His side, bare. The contrast was almost poetic. He walked through each room methodically, like a man taking inventory of his life one last time. In the study, he removed his degrees from the wall, slipped them into leather cases. In the master closet, he packed his suits with surgical precision. There was no haste, no chaos. Everything folded, labeled, zipped. His toothbrush, his watch, even the pen she'd once given him on their first anniversary, into the box. By noon he stood in the living room surrounded by stacked luggage. The faint sound of birds outside filtered through the half-open blinds. The world looked normal, but everything had already shifted. On the kitchen counter he placed a single envelope. Inside, a handwritten note on his stationery, short, unambiguous. You wanted a break. I respected it. He looked at the words for a long moment before sealing the envelope. His handwriting was steady, not a tremor in the ink. Trent Lawson arrived at 1:30. He didn't ask questions. Men like Trent never did. Together they carried out boxes, loading them in precise order. When the last one was placed in the trunk, Noah turned once to glance back at the house. The silence felt heavier now, emptier, yet cleaner. Noah locked the door behind him, slid the key into an envelope for the realtor, and gave Trent. He stood at the edge of the porch, the late afternoon sun cutting through the last thin strands of cloud. Dallas sprawled before him, alive, indifferent. When he got into his car, He didn't look back. The GPS was already set to Austin, 3 hours south. A new office, a new contract, a new silence that would belong entirely to him. By the time Savannah returned, the sun was sinking behind the skyline. She was humming as she stepped out of the car, still glowing from the spa, her skin glistening with oil and serenity. She unlocked the front door with one hand, scrolling through her phone with the other, smiling at messages from friends. Then she looked up. The stillness hit her first, the faint echo of her heels across the empty foyer. The living room, spotless but missing something invisible. She called out once lightly, "Noah." Her voice hung there, unanswered. She walked to the bedroom and stopped cold. His side of the closet, bare. Drawers open, hangers gone. The faint ghost of cologne still trapped in the air. The bathroom counter stripped clean. Even the photo of them at Lake Travis, missing from the frame. She laughed at first, small and nervous. "He's being dramatic," she muttered under her breath. "He'll come back. He always does." She poured herself a glass of wine, turned on the TV, tried to convince herself the house didn't sound like a tomb. But each room she passed through deepened the hollowness. She checked the garage, his car gone. The office, empty. At midnight, she found the envelope on the counter. Her fingers trembled slightly as she unfolded the note. The message was only 7 words, but it drained the color from her face. "You wanted a break. I respected it." Her hand slipped. The paper floated to the floor. She stood there for a long time, motionless, staring at nothing. The silence wasn't punishment anymore. It was absence. The realization came slowly, painfully, like cold water creeping up her spine. For the first time, Savannah understood what finality felt like. Outside, thunder murmured again across the horizon, faint but steady, as if the storm had come back to watch what it had started. The first week after Noah's disappearance stretched like fog, thick, directionless, cruel in its silence. Savannah tried calling at first, leaving messages that started light and ended in trembling apology. None were returned. By the 3rd day, she stopped pretending he was just cooling off. By the 7th, the truth began to sink in. That morning, she woke to the sound of a car pulling up outside. Through the curtains, she saw a white sedan and a woman in a blazer stepping out with 2 men in casual business wear. The woman rang the bell. Savannah opened the door, still in her robe, hair messy from another sleepless night. "Mrs. Bennett?" the woman asked politely. "I'm Rebecca from Sterling Realty. I'm here with the new occupants." Savannah frowned, gripping the door. "I think you're mistaken. This is my home." Rebecca's smile was courteous but firm. "As of yesterday, the property officially changed ownership. I'm here to notify you that you have 24 hours to vacate." The words felt like ice water. "That's impossible. My husband owns this house." "He did," Rebecca interrupted softly, sliding a document from her folder. "It's been transferred and finalized. I'm truly sorry, ma'am." Behind her, a young couple waited awkwardly, pretending not to stare. Savannah's voice cracked. "There has to be some mistake." Rebecca handed her a copy of the transfer papers. At the bottom was Noah Bennett's signature, neat, final, unmistakable. Savannah shut the door in disbelief. Her knees weakened. She stumbled toward the kitchen and grabbed the counter for balance. The envelope she'd left there last night still lay open. "You wanted a break. I respected it." Now the words felt less like emotion and more like prophecy. Before she could catch her breath, her phone buzzed. The caller ID flashed a name she hadn't seen in months. Claire Donovan. "Mrs. Bennett," came the voice, crisp and calm. "Mr. Bennett asked me to contact you regarding your separation. He requested a meeting at my office this afternoon at 2. I suggest you don't delay." Savannah stammered. "Separation? What does that mean? I haven't even—" Claire's tone didn't waver. "You'll understand when you arrive." The line went dead. Savannah stood motionless, her mind spinning. For years, She had dismissed Noah's quietness as weakness. Now she saw what silence could do when it carried intent. 2 hours later, across state lines, her parents sat on their porch in Montgomery, Alabama, a courier standing before them with a sealed envelope marked private. Denise Robinson opened it first. Inside were printed photographs. Savannah at the Blue Room Lounge, dancing, smiling, her ex's hand on her waist. At the bottom of the envelope, a flash drive. Harold Robinson's face turned to stone. He said nothing, just walked into the house and sat in his chair, staring at the wall. Denise's hands shook as she called her daughter. "Savannah," she whispered, her voice brittle. "Come home. Now." Savannah's throat tightened. "Mom, what happened?" Her mother's answer was quiet but heavy. "Your husband didn't send words. He sent truth." When Savannah arrived at Claire's office later that day, she looked like a shadow of herself, sunglasses hiding swollen eyes, composure barely stitched together. Claire greeted her with practiced neutrality and handed her a thick envelope. Savannah opened with a trembling hand and skimmed through each page, her pulse rising. "You're taking everything," she said finally, voice shaking. Claire folded her hands. "Correction. He's keeping what was his. The house, the company, the vehicles, those were never shared assets. He's left you the joint account and personal effects. He wanted this done quietly. Dignity intact." Savannah's composure cracked. "Dignity?" He left without a word. "Even the joint accounts only have $500 balance." Claire looked up, her gaze sharp. "He left you your freedom. You should value that more than pity." For a moment, Savannah couldn't breathe. Every decision she'd made in pride now looped back in silence. She gathered the documents, thanked Claire with a voice that didn't sound like hers, and walked out. Outside, the sky was burning gold over Dallas, the city humming like it always did. She stood by her car for a long time, watching strangers pass by, couples laughing, hands intertwined, faces soft with the kind of peace she used to mock. The world had moved on, and she was standing still. She didn't see Noah anywhere, yet his presence filled everything, the streets, the air, the sound of her own regret. When she finally drove away, the sunset followed her in the mirror, fading behind her like the last trace of something she'd taken for granted. Silence is not weakness. It's strategy in its purest form. When pride blinds love, the quiet one always wins the war you never knew had begun. Noah didn't scream, didn't fight. He simply planned peace so sharp it cut deeper than anger ever could. Sometimes the greatest revenge isn't destruction, but walking away with your dignity untouched. Savannah learned too late that arrogance costs more than heartbreak. It costs respect. Real power doesn't announce itself. It exits gracefully, leaving truth behind. Because when love meets ego, silence will always deliver the final blow in grand style. Do you think Noah didn't handle this perfectly? Drop your thoughts in the comments and don't forget to like and subscribe for more interesting and true-to-life stories.